A female deputy and the town sheriff left for their night shift patrol in 1985 to follow up on a routine lead. But they never returned to the station, sparking one of Texas's longest-running missing persons cases. Then 16 years later, hikers stumble upon an abandoned outhouse in the mountains and peer inside. What they see at the bottom of the pit reveals investigators had been chasing the wrong theory all along. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the weathered buildings of Presidio, Texas, a remote border town where the vast Chihuahuan desert stretched endlessly toward Mexico. In 2001, the town's population barely reached 3 million souls, making it the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business and where secrets had a way of festering in the heat. Detective Simon Reyes sat hunched over his desk in the small police station, reviewing witness statements from a recent missing person case. A 17-year-old girl had vanished 3 days ago, and the trail was already growing cold. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as he made notes in the margins, his concentration so complete that he didn't hear the footsteps rushing down the hallway until Officer Martinez burst through his door. Detective Martinez panted, his uniform damp with sweat. Despite the air conditioning, we just got a call from a park ranger up in the Chinati Mountains. Some hikers found a body. Simon looked up sharply. Another missing girl. No, sir, it's a law enforcement officer in uniform. Tharanger says the body's been there a long time, but it's well preserved, found in an old outhouse. Simon rose immediately, his chair scraping against the linoleum floor. His mind raced through the possibilities. Get me the case file on the 1985 disappearance of Sheriff Ray Holbrook and Deputy Leah Ortega. That's the only case we have with missing officers. This could be connected. Martinez's eyes widened. With recognition, everyone in the department knew about that case. It was Presidio's most infamous cold case. Right away, detective. As Martinez rushed out, Simon grabbed his jacket and headed downstairs. The station was already buzzing with activity, officers moving with purpose. As word spread, he spotted Detective Cara DuPont by the coffee machine and called out to her. Cara, we've got a body in the mountains, possibly connected to the Holbrook Ortega case. I need you with me. DuPont, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, immediately set down her coffee. I'll grab my gear, Simon. Then turned to 2 female deputies who were checking equipment near the armory. Deputy Marraro. You're coming too. Deputy Debbie Carr, a blonde woman in her mid-30s, looked up with surprise. Deputy Trish Marraro, slightly younger, with auburn hair pulled back in a tight bun, exchanged a glance with her colleague. Simon noticed something pass between them, a flicker of unease, perhaps even fear. He remembered now, 16 years ago when Sheriff Holbrook and Deputy Ortega had vanished, Debbie and Trish had been young officers who came forward with troubling testimonies. They'd claimed that Sheriff Holbrook had been inappropriate with them, making unwanted advances, and creating a hostile work environment. They hadn't spoken up at the time, too scared of retaliation. But after the sheriff disappeared along with Deputy Ortega, they'd finally given their statements. The prevailing theory had been that Holbrook had kidnapped Ortega, possibly assaulted or killed her, then fled, but neither had ever been found. The group moved quickly to their vehicles. Martinez reappeared with a thick manila folder. The cold case file here, detective. Everything we have on the 1985 disappearance. Get in? Simon told him. Brief me on the way. They climbed into 2 patrol cars, Simon and Martinez in the lead vehicle, with the case file spread across Martinez's lap. As they pulled out of the station parking lot and headed toward the mountains, the younger officer began reading. Sheriff Ray Holbrook, age 42. Atom of disappearance, Deputy Leah Ortega, age 25. They were working the night shift on October 15, 1985. Last seen leaving the station at 8:47 p.m. for routine patrol. When they didn't report in by morning, search teams were deployed. Their patrol car was found, abandoned on Highway 67, keys still in the ignition. No signs of struggle. Simone navigated through the sparse traffic, his mind already working through scenarios. What about the investigation? Extensive searches of the surrounding desert turned up nothing. The FBI was brought in. Briefly suspected connection to drug cartels operating in the area. Interviews with locals revealed Holbrook and Ortega had been investigating rumors of missing girls, possible human trafficking connected to cross-border operations the night they vanished. They'd reportedly planned to check out a bar called the Dusty Spur Saloon, known hangout for truckers and smugglers. The landscape changed as they climbed into the Chinati Mountains, desert scrub giving way to rocky terrain dotted with juniper and piñon pine. Simon reached for his phone and dialed a number he'd kept saved for 16 years. Mrs. Ortega. This is Detective Simon Reyes with the Presidio Police Department. The voice that answered was frailer than he remembered, aged by 16 years of uncertainty. Ma'am, I'm calling about your daughter's case. We found evidence that might be connected. Can you come to the Chinati Mountains? I'll send officers to escort you. Marisol Ortega's voice cracked with emotion. Evidence after all this time, is it Leia? We're not certain yet, ma'am, but I wanted you to know immediately. The officers will explain everything. After ending the call, they followed the coordinates the park ranger had provided, turning onto an unmaintained dirt road that wound higher into the mountains. The terrain became increasingly rugged, their vehicles bouncing over rocks and washouts. Finally, they spotted a park service truck and two figures waiting by a trailhead. The park ranger who greeted them was a weathered man in his 50s. Detective Reyes, I'm Bill Hutchkins. The hikers are just up this trail with my partner. It's about a 4-mile hike to the outhouse. They gathered their equipment and followed Hutchkins up a narrow path that seemed barely used. The trail was overgrown in places with loose rocks that made footing treacherous. After 10 minutes of climbing, they reached a small clearing where another park ranger stood with an elderly couple. The wooden outhouse stood at the edge of the clearing, its weathered boards gray with age. The door hung open, revealing the dark interior. The elderly woman, wearing expensive hiking gear, looked pale but composed. Her husband, a fit man in his 70s, had his arm around her shoulders. I'm Detective Reyes. Simon said, you found the body. The woman nodded. I'm Ruth Donnelly, and this is my husband Carl. We were hiking, trying a new route, more challenging terrain, you know. How it is when you reach our age, you want to prove you've still got it. She managed. A weak smile. I needed to use the facilities after our long climb. That's when I dropped my glasses, prescription bifocals. Carl added $600. Ruth called me to help retrieve them. Ruth continued. Carl used a stick to try to fish them out. The pit was deep, completely dark. Then he saw something that looked like leather. Carl pulled out his keyring, showing a small LED flashlight attached. I always carry this old habit from my engineering days when I shined it down there. I could see it was a boot. With a foot still in it, we immediately went to find the rangers. Ruth said we didn't touch anything else. Ranger Hutchkins stepped forward when I arrived. We carefully removed the toilet seat to get a better view. That's when we saw the uniform, the badge, and what appears to be a service weapon. We haven't disturbed the scene beyond that initial examination. Ayman approached the outhouse with DuPont, both pulling on latex gloves. The structure was typical of remote facilities, a simple wooden box with a bench seat over a deep pit. But as they peered into the darkness below, Simon's flashlight illuminated something that made him catch his breath. The body was partially visible among layers of desiccated waste the dry mountain conditions had mummified portions of their remains, preserving details that should have been lost to time. A sheriff's uniform was clearly visible, along with a tarnished badge and the butt of a revolver protruding from a leather holster. We need to get the body out, Simon said. Call for a forensics team and some workers with proper equipment. We'll need to dismantle part of the structure. As they waited for additional personnel, Simon questioned the rangers about the outhouse's history. This trail was officially abandoned in 1992. Hutchkins explained unstable rock formations, risk of landslides. We stopped maintaining it, including this facility. Honestly, I'm surprised these folks made it up here. The trail markers were removed years ago. We saw it on an old topographic map. Carl admitted, thought it would be an adventure. The forensics team arrived within an hour, along with workers carrying tools and protective equipment. They carefully dismantled the wooden flooring around the toilet seat, creating a larger opening. The process was slow and meticulous, each board removed with care to preserve any potential evidence. When they finally extracted the body, the forensics team was amazed at its condition. Dr. Patricia Chen, the medical examiner, crouched beside the remains. The aid conditions up here, combined with the anaerobic environment in a sealed pit, created perfect conditions for partial mummification. The waste layers settled and composted over the years, actually helping to preserve certain tissues. She carefully examined the badge using a soft brush to clear away debris. The number is still legible. She read it aloud, and Simon felt his stomach drop as Martinez checked it against the case file. That's That's Sheriff Holbrook's badge number, Martinez said, his voice barely above a whisper. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. If this was Sheriff Holbrook, then everything they'd believed about the case was wrong. Simon noticed Deputy's car and Marraro,